Bookkeeping is one of the easier papers in the board exams. You know, the biggest misconception about this paper is that it's about calculations, and that is far from the truth. Bookkeeping is about properly recording transactions in your books of entries. That's literally what it's all about. Hey, what's good, YouTube family? Welcome to my channel. My name is Shella, or you can call me your lawyer bestie, and I am an admitted attorney of the High Court of South Africa, which means that once upon a time I had to write bookkeeping, and for me this was one of the easier papers. I wrote it once and I passed really well, and this is only because I understood that this is not like mathematics. This is really about recording the proper transactions in the right books of entries. I did not have an accounting background. I did not do accounting in school. With mathematics, I'm also not the strongest. So at first I was very worried about it. I was like, yo, how am I going to deal with bookkeeping? How am I going to deal with calculations? And if you feel the same, let me tell you, forget calculations. The most you're going to do when it comes to calculations is basic mathematics. So I'm talking adding and simple multiplication, simple division, nothing too hectic. It's not like formulas. And you know how formulas are. They can throw you off if you don't have the correct background. So make notes for this paper. Make notes yourself. I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make when preparing for this paper is just running straight to doing the practical work, to answering the questions while they don't know the theory. Not knowing the theory is going to throw you off big time. So if you don't know, for example, what the debit means or what the credit means, where the credit or the debit should be on the books of entries, like you're already going the wrong way. So make sure that you do your own notes. Don't dread the making of notes because it isn't even a lot. Another huge tip is don't consolidate the work. Don't put everything together and, you know, start studying everything together. Divide the work into sections. I'm such a big fan of dividing work into sections because it is by doing that that you can see how much you know per section, as opposed to you thinking, how much do I know for this paper? That is quite dangerous because if you have 2 or 3 subjects that you understand fully and you're very confident about them, but you've got, let's say, the remaining 7 that you're not so sure about, the fact that you're so confident in the 3 can create an illusion that you know so much for the paper, while in actual fact you don't. So when you divide the work into sections, you make sure that you go through each section individually and you grasp about, you know, 60-70% of the content in each section, and that will enable you to ultimately do well in the exam. So section out the work, and I would divide it into 4 when it comes to bookkeeping. Number 1 is, you know, the general principles of accounting. That's where things like the bank reconciliation statement and how to do that will fall in. So that will be the first one. And then the second section would be investment. And then the next will be correspondent. And then the next would be conveyancing transactions. So I will study those individually and then attempt them individually. I did that quite a lot while I was studying. I found it easier to practice sectionally as well as studying sectionally. So even when I do past papers, I'll do a paper, but I'll just do a section that is what I'm studying or what I'm learning at that current moment. So if I'm doing conveyancing transactions, I'll do conveyancing transaction questions, and then for like a couple of past papers. And then when I move on to, let's say, basic accounting principles, I'm doing bank reconciliation statements. I'm doing bank reconciliation statement questions for all the past papers that I have. The next point also buttresses on the previous one, and that is practice. I don't even know how you will pass this paper if you don't practice. Like, there's just no 2 ways about this one. Like, there's just no way. You cannot neglect this one. You cannot overlook it. You cannot ignore it. Do not do that. You have to practice. It's not enough knowing the theory. Practice with the questions that are found in the practice manual that you were given. The handout from the Legal Practice Council. Practice with questions from past papers. Like, just practice practice and practice. That's a big one. And another thing is, when you get to the exam venue, please read the question carefully. I know this sounds basic, but for things like conveyancing transactions, the difference between you being the instructing attorney or you being the instructed attorney makes all the difference in how you go about the transactions. So that's why it's important to read the questions and know what it is that is expected of you. That's another reason why people do poorly in the exam. So it's not so much the fact that you haven't practiced, you haven't studied. It's also about not understanding what the question is requiring you to do, and that will lead to you failing. So please make sure that you read the question and do what the question asks. Only what the question asks. Don't do like extra stuff. That won't work. So just make sure that you understand the question and you do as you need to do. All right, so I just want to talk about, trust accounts, trust cash books in general. This they might not ask in the paper, but I think it's important to know as a legal practitioner. And that is the fact that when it comes to the trust cash book, it doesn't matter how many clients you have, you will always have one trust cash book. That's also because in practice you only have one trust account, and every single client puts money in that one trust account. You don't have a trust account for client A, a trust account for client B, a trust account for client C. No, it's one trust account. So even in the exam, remember that there's only one trust account, therefore there must be one trust cash book. So another big thing when it comes to trust accounts is that your trust account can never be in a deficit. So this means that your trust cash book as well can never be in a deficit. In practice, your trust account must always be in a positive balance or on zero. It can never be in a negative, because these are monies that you are holding for client. So it doesn't make sense for that bank account to be in a deficit. So you might be asking, what about bank charges? Because, bank charges are there. So if the client is giving you 10,000 Rand, the client doesn't give you money for bank charges as well. So what happens is, in practice, bank charges must always be debited from the business account. In practice, please remember this, don't forget it. If the trust account bank charges don't have another account that supplements them, it's going to lead to the account being in a deficit, and you're going to get in trouble with the Legal Practice Council. So always remember that your trust account must rather be on zero than in a negative balance. All right, let's go through some of the content that is super important for this paper. Let me give you some tips as to how to go about the specific questions that they must ask. And the first big thing is bank reconciliation. Bank recon, literally one of the easiest questions in the exam. After you've done the bank reconciliation, make sure that at the end, your books must balance. The bottom line, the last thing is balancing. Make sure that you balance and that the amounts are identical. However, if your books don't balance, don't panic. My tip is that look over the work for about 2 minutes, and if you cannot spot where you went wrong, I suggest that you move on to another question. And also, just because your books don't balance doesn't mean that you will fail the question. So when it comes to bookkeeping, you are marked correctly for every transaction that you record correctly. So for example, if the question is out of 15 marks and you have recorded everything correctly and you just missed one transaction, obviously that will lead to your books not balancing, and then you will lose a mark for the final amount because it's not balancing, and then you will also lose a mark for not recording that particular transaction properly. So you'll find that out of 15 you lose like 3 marks and you already have 12, and 12 out of 15 is not a fail. So that's why I say that don't spend too much time trying to figure out what did I record correctly, and if you can't figure it out, don't panic, because you will still get marks for recording other things properly. So keep that in mind. The next thing is record the transactions in full. Don't just write F&B 4,000 Rand. If the question states that on the 1st of February 2024, F&B erroneously paid 4,000 into your account, then you write the whole thing in full. You write the date, and then you write that erroneous payment from FNB, 4,000 Rand. Don't just write FNB 4,000 Rand. You don't even write the date. Please make this thing make sense. When you look at your statement, when you look at your books, putting in things like the date and the full transaction, like a description of the transaction, makes the whole thing make sense. And remember this, for every debit, there must be a credit. Remember the double entry rule. There are no single entries, except where the bank has made an error, has paid you in error. You cannot be putting that transaction in your cash book, because remember, that's a bank mistake. So it's got nothing to do with your cash book. So if, for example, the bank has taken out money out of your account by mistake, do not write that in your cash book, because it's got nothing to do with that. It's about the bank statement. So then you fix the error in the bank statement by crediting the money in the bank statement. Okay, let's quickly go over reconciliation items. So these are items that are in the cash book but don't appear in the bank statement. So one of them is an outstanding check. Now, checks are no longer in use. In South Africa, checks have been discontinued. So I doubt they would ask you a question about checks. But back when I wrote board exams, checks were still a thing. And outstanding checks would have to be credited in the cash book and then debited on the bank statement. And the next one is an outstanding deposit. With outstanding deposit, you always debit the cash book and then credit the bank statement. So then let's go to items that appear in the bank statement but not in the cash book. For example, bank charges. With bank charges, you debit the statement and you credit the cash book. And then the next thing is interest received. With interest, you credit the statement and then you debit the cash book. So when it comes to bank statements, the word debit means to take out. And then when it comes to your cash book, the word debit means to put in. So that's why the terminology in this is extremely important, and also knowing where to put the credit side, where to put the debit side. So make sure that you know that as well. And then direct deposit or EFTs, that means you will credit the statement and then you will debit the cash book. Stop orders, you will debit the statement and then credit the cash book. And another one, this is relating to checks. If they ever ask, you'll be like, thank you, Shella. And that is an RD check. So an RD check is a refer to drawer check. So this is usually a check that is not cleared or it bounced, you know. So RD, refer to drawer. Maybe it is dishonored or unpaid. That's an RD check. And then you will have to debit the statement. Like I said, with bank statements, debit means to take out. And then credit on the cash book means to take out. So then you will credit the cash book. Like I said, for every debit, there must be a credit. All right, that's that for bank reconciliation statement. Let's quickly move on to investments. So there are two types of investments that you should know, super important. So we've got two types of investments in accordance with the Act, and that is investment in terms of Section 86(3) and then investment in terms of Section 86(4). These investments are not the same. So the first one being Section 86(3), that is where the client doesn't give you mandate to invest. You are the one that decides to invest in your own accord, and you invest the money, and 100% of the interest received from that amount goes to the Legal Practice Fidelity Fund. 100% of the interest. So this is where the client doesn't instruct you. You just go and you do your own thing and you invest the money because you see that it is the best option to do in that scenario. And then we've got the second type of investment, and that is investment in terms of Section 86(4). This is where the client gives you mandate to invest. The interest is divided differently. So you've got 5%, which goes to the Legal Practice Fidelity Fund. And then 95% of the interest goes to client. So when you read the exam question, that's why you must read these questions properly. When you read the question and the question says that the client has requested you to invest the money, it must already click that, oh, the client has instructed. That means it is investment in terms of Section 86(4). before. When you pay out the interest, when you record the interest, you know that 5% of the interest goes to the LPFF, and then 95% of the interest goes to client. So that makes a whole lot of difference between the two types of investments and how you would record in the paper. So when you read the question and the question says that you then decided to invest the money on your own accord, then you're like, aha, there was no instruction from client. It was just me on my own accord. That means it's a Section 86(3) type of investment. I'm the one who invested without the client's instruction. So then you put in that, and then when it comes to the interest, you know that in terms of this section, 100% of the interest goes to the LPFF. So know this and know this very well. Don't just skim through it and be like, oh, well, I read over it. No. Now, tips for conveyancing transactions. The big one for me is bank guarantee. You guys, a bank guarantee is not a payment. When you are reading questions when it comes to conveyancing transactions and they're like, on the 1st of February 2024, you received a bank guarantee of 1.2 million from Absa Bank, don't record it. A bank guarantee is not money that has come into an account. It's a promise. Always remember that bank guarantee is a promise, and a promise can be broken, okay? It's not money in the account. So you skip that one. You don't record it. And then another big thing is estate agents are only paid after the registration of the property. So immediately when you read the question, and you know at the end, it's usually the last point, it'll say that, let's say on the 30th of March, the property was registered. Now, to show that you understand the theory, you must put 30th of March payment to the estate agent, because it shows that you know that estate agents are only paid after the property has been registered. So if in the question you see that the estate agent has sent you a pro forma account on the 1st of March, don't record it. A pro forma account, like a promise, sometimes is not honored, sometimes it's not paid. So when it comes to things like a pro forma account, you don't record that one. Pro forma account, you don't record. Even a bank guarantee, leave it like that. They're just trying to trick you. So estate agent only paid upon registration. And don't put the pro forma date. You put the date where it was stated that the property is registered. So if the property is registered on the 30th of March, you pay the estate agent on the 30th of March, and you record that transaction properly with the date 30th of March, because it shows that you know that the estate agent is not paid before the property is registered. So when it comes to conveyancing transactions, dates are important because dates show that you understand the theory. So if the estate agent, for example, has sent a pro forma account on the 1st of March and the property was registered on the 30th of March, if you go and put 1st of March and you are recording that you paid the estate agent, you're going to be marked incorrectly. Even if you have put that in the correct side, in the debit side and the credit side, if you have put it in correctly, it doesn't matter. The fact that you paid the estate agent before the property was registered is incorrect. So that's why dates are so important. Theory and putting in the dates, then you're like, oh, okay, the property is registered on this date, then I can pay the estate agent. Always remember that point. Also, when you receive money from the purchaser, always put it in the trust cash book on the same date you receive it. That is because even in practice, the rules state that you need to deposit the money that you get from client the very same day that you receive it. If you receive money from client on the 1st of February, you put it in the trust cash book on the 1st of February, same as in practice. The day you receive money from client, you put it in the trust account. So that is important. Don't just put random dates. Put the right date. So the day you receive money from client, you put it in the trust account. And also, you submitting a pro forma account is not a transaction. Don't put it in your books of entries that you have submitted a pro forma account. No, you do not record that. Same way you don't record the bank guarantee. Same way you don't record the pro forma account of the estate agent. And then the last part, that is correspondent accounts. Here, make sure that you read the question carefully. Know if you are the instructed attorney or the instructing attorney, because that makes all the difference. If you blunder there, you've messed up the whole question. So make sure that you know if you are instructed or you are the instructing. And then if there is an allowance, make sure that you calculate the allowance on fees, on each and every single fee. Fee goes with allowance. They go hand in hand, not separately. So make sure that you read the questions carefully so that, you know, on every fee, you calculate an allowance. And then the next important thing also is VAT. Are you a VAT vendor? Is the other attorney a VAT vendor? You need to ascertain that, and you will find that if you read the question properly. And know the VAT percentage as at the date that you are writing the exam. That is my big tip when it comes to correspondence transactions. And also, I just want you to know that this paper is not difficult. I think approaching anything and knowing that it's not difficult makes it easier to conquer. So this paper is not difficult at all. If you know your theory, there's absolutely no way that you can fail this paper. If you know your theory and you know what to record where, I just don't see how you can fail. So I think where most people get it wrong is just not knowing the theory. Because I've seen with other people, when they start with preparing for bookkeeping, they run straight to past papers, they run straight to answering questions. And I'm like, don't do that. Start by knowing the theory, because it's the theory that will help you to record transactions properly. So if you just know that they are investments, but you don't know how the interest in the investment is divided, that is the difference between you and 10 marks. That's literally what's standing between you and 10 more marks, because you wouldn't know how to divide the interest properly, which percentage goes to who. You wouldn't know when they say that the interest received from this is, let's say, 10,000 Rand. Then you wouldn't know what to do with the 10,000 Rand. Do you take it and give it all to client, or you put it in your, you end up putting the investment interest in your trust cash book because you just don't know what to do. And that is incorrect. So know the theory, and like I said, make notes, and the notes aren't even that much. They really aren't. Like you see, like I said, divide the work into sections, and then you've got like 4 major sections for this. I tell you, like, I don't think the notes even take like past 3 papers for each section, not even 2. I think for some it'll even be like half a page, like investments, you know. But what I'm trying to tell you is that the notes are not that much, and go with the mentality of it's not difficult, because it is not. Don't put, you know, preconceived ideas in your mind that these papers are difficult, and that, you know, because a lot of people have failed, a lot of people have written the paper repeatedly, that means that's going to be your reality. No, that's not the truth. There are people like myself who have written this paper once, and if you are writing this paper for the 2nd, 3rd, or even 4th time, that's okay. But I want you this time to go with the knowledge that this is not difficult, this is not hard, you know. That also makes it very easy to study. And then I also just want to repeat this, and that is practice, 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 and more practice. You cannot get bookkeeping without practicing. Bookkeeping is like paper 2 as well. Without practicing the L&D, there's no way you will get it right. So without practicing the recording of these transactions, how to do entries, how to do transfer journals, the theory behind that, if you do not practice that, I don't see any way that you can pass this paper. And yeah, I think that's it for today's video. I hope that this video was helpful to you. If you have found this video to be helpful, please share this video with somebody who you think will find this useful. And please like this video as well. If you have enjoyed it, give it a big thumbs up. Drop down to the comment section so we can engage. And yeah, we have come to the end. Thank you for watching. I will see you on my next one. Also, come back and drop your testimony and be like, yo, I passed my paper 4 exam, or any other paper. You can just, you know, write in the comment section, and, you know, we'll all just celebrate with you and congratulate you. I wish you everything of the best in writing your paper. May you come out tops. May this be the last time that you write any paper that you are registered to write for. Let this time that you are writing be the last. You will not write this paper again, nor will you get an oral. This is a straight pass, okay? I will see you on my next one. Until then, I'm sending you tons of love and light, positive energy, and, you know, good study vibes and all of that. Until then, I will see you. Bye.